So here is my fighting conch. At this point, I don't think he could really fight off anything. This particular conch has to be one of the laziest I've ever owned. Usually they cruise around throughout the tank and stir up the sand bed, make it nice and white. I've had this guy 3 weeks now, and I don't think he has moved more than an inch or two. I even thought at one point, shoot, is he dead? So if you have any ideas of how to get this guy to wake up and start moving around, let me know, or maybe it just needs more time. Welcome back to the channel, folks. Before we get into some new coral additions, including this tank's first SPS corals, I wanted to thank all of you for your comments. This recent comment by MW on my last video that my ballast sitting on the bottom of the cabinet was a fire waiting to happen. That stuff is just great. I promptly took care of that. I now have the ballast mounted up on the side. But this kind of feedback is stuff that I find super valuable. I've done this a few times now. This is probably my 11th tank. But, there's things I just am careless about or overlook, and I appreciate the help and support. So please keep those comments coming, especially if you notice anything odd or things that could cause fires or something like that. Now let's get into the corals, at least my latest addition. So first up is an ORA pink stylophora. I always have to have a few ORA corals in my tank. I think they're great. They're all aquacultured, which is really nice. That helps save our reefs, right? But it also gives me, as a hobbyist, a better chance of keeping these corals alive and thriving in a young tank like this tank. So these corals have been grown in other glass boxes just like mine. So I like that because I think as the first few, as I add these new corals to this new tank, I have a little bit more confidence that, hey, I think I might be more successful with this type of coral rather than like a wild variety of sorts, right? So the ORA pink stylophora, it's really great. It's a nice way to get that bright pink coloration added to your tank. And I have found that if you pound these corals with lots of light, that pink will become even brighter with time. And so because of this, I place this coral up high towards the top of my rockwork. The only, I would say, negative thing about this type of coral is it's relatively slow at growing, and at least with my experience. The coral doesn't quite branch out too much. It remains fairly thick and compact, so it's kind of takes a lot, right, for this coral to have noticeable growth. So that would be the only negative. I just love the bright pink coloration that you get from this coral. Now the next ORA coral I've picked up is a green bird's nest. So yeah, nothing fancy, right? I can't, though, myself own a tank without this coral. In a prior tank, this coral grew from a small frag to a softball-sized colony in only about 12 months. And I love the bright fluorescent coloration and the growth pattern of this coral. I mean, this, like I said, it's nothing fancy at all by any means, this type of coral. But when just random guests or company would come by and look at my tank, they were always drawn to this coral. Under blue LEDs, this coral just literally glows. But I think it's that growth pattern. I mean, it just takes up a lot of space and it has a lot of presence. This coral likes, in my experience, a decent amount of flow, and it can tolerate both lower light and high light conditions. And because it's a fast grower, in my experience, and its ability to get quite large, I place it kind of lower in the tank because I think if you put it too high, it can shade out corals beneath it as it grows out. My last ORA coral that I just added is a red ganiapora. And I love the unique look of ganiaporas, but I haven't had a lot of success with keeping them. Now, for the most part, I can keep the wild varieties, those really bright, vivid color varieties, alive, but I struggle to observe growth with those, personally. So maybe there's something about me, I just can't keep them growing or thriving. I have had success with a lot of the greenish variants. But since this particular coral, it's ORA, it's aquaculture, I hope I can achieve some success with actual growth and long-term sustainability. more than just a few months or a year. I want this coral to actually grow and see some growth out of it with time. Now at this time, it definitely isn't the most bright red ganiapora out there, but I'm hoping if I slowly increase the light intensity that coloration will become a little bit more vivid with time. And I will also try to feed phytoplankton to this coral a couple times a week to kind of help things along with it and see if it can grow and color up a little bit better. But this one is a little bit of a risk. We'll see how it does. But I just love I love the ganiapora. I love how it flows in the water. It's unique. It's different, and I like the red coloration it brings to the tank. So in the last 3 to 5 years, gold torches have become all the rage, it seems. And man, I swear they're super expensive now. I picked up this ignited dragon soul, I think is the name. And I'm pleased with it. It's doing really well. I got it off to the side of the tank and down fairly low with plenty of room to grow out, as I know they can be fairly aggressive towards other corals. But I've always liked to have at least one torch in my tank because their dancing long tentacles kind of help me feel like I have an anemone in my tank. And in prior tanks, my gold torch actually served as a host for a clownfish pair I had. And surprisingly, that torch always extended fully and didn't seem to be bothered by the fish. So I think a torch is a great alternative to an anemone. And, although there are probably many out there that are comfortable with anemones in mixed tanks, I've just had a couple bad experiences where they start to walk on me and cause some issues. So this is why I have a gold torch, really. It kind of gives me that sense that I have something that looks like an anemone, and I love the gold coloration. I think it's just great. So we'll see how it does over the next few weeks. Now this next addition is just your basic gold hammer. In this video, it doesn't really do it this frag justice. It was, under just actinics. I should have filmed it just under actinics. It absolutely glows. And again, these are getting a little bit more expensive too. Not near as expensive as the torch I picked up. But to me, a hammer coral is kind of that iconic LPS coral that every mixed tank must have. This coral, along with the torch and the frog spawn that I picked up, kind of complete my top LPS trinity, if you will. So I placed this frag on the opposite side of the tank from the torch, give it plenty of room to grow out. I do think that the branching variety grows a little faster than the wall hammers you see. So I have this frag towards the bottom of the tank. I think it's getting about 150 par or so. So not a ton of light, but not super low light either. And I have found that in lower light they actually extend more and reach for the light, so they look a little bit more puffed up, if you will. But if you give them more intense light, you get a little bit better coloration, I think. And what's also really great about hammers is that they're super easy to frag. So here's how the new Red Sea Reefer 2nd generation is looking at this point. So yes, still pretty sparse, but I am slowly bringing in more corals, and I'm excited about watching things grow in. Next up will likely be some additions of some acropora that I'm building confidence. Right, I started off with a few really easy frags, and those are thriving. I've got some more delicate LPS corals, I guess you could say, in here now, and they're thriving. So we're going to give that a few more weeks, and then I'm going to start getting some more stony corals in here that are a little bit more challenging to keep alive and see how we do. On a positive note, my recent algae outbreak seems to be dying down some, as you can see here, but I'm sure more outbreaks are on the way. They're on the horizon. This tank is just really young, right? So you kind of go through cycles. So as usual, please consider subscribing and smashing that like button for me. And I will see you all in the next update. Happy reefing. Peace.